this is Josh from JewishPreppers.com, and we're going to do our third segment, this having to do with power, heat, light. These are all things that we left off on the last segment, and they're essential for a disaster situation. If you're properly prepared, you don't have anything to worry about. And I'm going to give you some of the tools, as I explained in the past segments. It's not all-inclusive, but you want to know that you're prepared. You want to think out what different scenarios could happen, and you want to be prepared for any sort of eventuality. So let's go on to some of the materials that I suggest you have. Here we have for power, there are many options, but here are some options that are solar based. So if you have a solar charger, here's a solar, over here we have a solar battery maintainer. This in conjunction with a large marine battery is wonderful. This will keep you going for quite a while. You want to make sure that you have extra batteries, rechargeable, not rechargeable, all different types of batteries that you might be using for the different equipment on hand and always powered up, and make sure that it's fully charged. You can have flashlights like these cheap dyno crank flashlights or this shake flashlight. Both of these are great tools. They don't take any batteries. You can have light all the time, and it's just a matter of being able to crank or shake. You should have regular flashlights with batteries. Those are always a good thing to have around as well. Gasoline should be stored. People forget that the gasoline pumps today, almost all of them run on electricity. So if the electrical grid goes, then you're going to be in trouble because you're not going to have. So you need to store a certain amount of gasoline. In order to store that gasoline, specifically benzene as opposed to diesel or other types of gasolines, do not have a very long shelf life. So you want to get this thing called Stabil, which is a fuel stabilizer, and it is essential for extending the shelf life of those kind of fuels. Read the directions. Again, we're not going into detail here. Light, you want to have propane around. Propane lanterns are important. Having propane tanks, LP tanks outside are important in order to have a gas grill in order to cook, all sorts of things like that. And these are all sorts of power ideas that you're going to make. And I forgot to mention, I think that over here you want to make sure that as far as water is concerned, that you have water not only to be able to filter, but water stored. Another thing I just want to mention over here in the case of a disaster is, and even if there's not a disaster, you always want to be prepared for a fire situation. You can get these very large, good for all type of fires, fire extinguishers, essential in case of a fire. Likewise, for going back to water and cleanliness, which we're going to get to in medicine, cleanliness is essential, especially in a disaster situation, high stress situation. You get one of these kits that are for a shower. It's a portable shower, and that's going to be really important in order to keep clean, assuming you have a water source. We're very fortunate here. We have many rivers and we have a lot of water. We just have to filter it if necessary. That having been said, you want to make sure also that you have a way of disposing with waste. People don't think about it often, but it's necessary to go to the bathroom, and don't mean to be crude, but you have to be able to dispose of that. Here is just a small porta potty sort of device. There are many different things out there. I would highly recommend researching this, getting enzymes that are necessary to break down whatever waste you have, and therefore when the water shuts off, you won't be stuck with a toilet that's overflowing, because you don't want to have that. Let me go on a little bit to books. Books is a big segment of different kinds of books, and I love them all. I mean, I'm a big fan of reading, and especially I have to mention that in a disaster situation, you're not going to have access, if you don't have electricity, to the internet. You may not have an internet. You're not going to have access to television. You may not have access to all sorts of things that require power. So you want to make sure that you have a physical hard copy of things. I know it's hard to find these days, but books are out there. You can buy the physical copies of them, and they're essential. Don't rely on your ebook. Here we have a bunch of books that are somewhat fictionist. They're fiction. 1 Second After is one of my favorites. Doomsday, The End of the World Scenarios, Patriots. These are all classics when it comes to books about prepping and survival. These are fiction books, but they give you a lot of practical information of what you would use if push came to shove and you needed to use it. So I definitely recommend reading. The more the better that you read about these kind of. It gives you ideas of scenarios that might come up, gets you thinking about what you should do, what you should prepare for. Next, I would recommend, as far as medication, and we didn't get to the medicines yet, but you need a bunch of books that have to do with how to deal with medical situations. We're very fortunate that we have medical backgrounds in the house. In the community, we have many medical professionals that are used to emergency medicine. But even for the layman, you want to make sure that you have some basic manuals. Some of the things that I would highly recommend are this series that is used by the Peace Corps and other groups that go to Africa and third world countries. It's called Where There Is No Doctor, a Village Healthcare Handbook. The sequel to that is Where There Is No Dentist. These are things that will give you an idea if you lack medical facilities, what you can do in an emergency. Very essential. Since we're Jewish preppers, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that you should have a very solid structure and foundation in Judaism, in your religion, whatever it may be. And it's especially important in a high-stress situation to fall back on that. You want to have, some examples are copies of the Holy Scriptures, Psalms. We read Psalms in emergencies. It's something that you want to have, at hand. Here are some ideas as far as Jewish law and halacha. Ideas of what to do in a digest of halachas pertaining to pikuach nefesh. These are things that have to do with what you have to do in an emergency, what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do. Here is another fictional book, but it's based on Jewish concepts. It's called 2020 Vision. Maybe that'll give you some ideas. Likewise, you have a whole set of survival books, and I recommend them all. There's some that I recommend more than others, the SAS, or some of the classics, the U.S. Army Survival Guide. These are kind of books that you should be looking into now, you should be reading beforehand, and you should have on hand in case you need them, because when you need them, you want to make sure that you can reference them at a short notice. So these are some of the ideas that I've come up with here, and I appreciate it. If you have any other comments for me, I would recommend coming to jewishpreppers.com, making comments, positive, negative. I take it all. I'm happy to learn more about what you have to share, as well as making additional segments if you think it's necessary. And we'll continue with the next segment coming up shortly. Thank you.